Well, Tulsi Gabbard has just pulled an about face, flip flopping on her position on the warrantless wiretapping of Americans. According to reports this week, Tulsi Gabbard, who was once a member of Congress, of course, and pushed to repeal Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, now says that she will support it. Why the flip flop? So is it now okay to just spy on Americans, something she spoke out so vociferously against? What happened to her spine on this issue? What happened to John Ratcliffe? What is his position on all of this? We'll get to that part in a second. But let's ask someone who's very outspoken on the government spying on Americans. That is CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou, who John told the truth about what our intelligence agencies were doing during the Iraq War. For telling the truth, President Obama went after him and had him charged, put in prison. Yes, John went to jail for exposing the CIA. So CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou joins us now. John, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. So first, let's talk about Tulsi. We'll get to John Ratcliffe in a second here. I think most of the, as you know, I think you rightly point out, most of the attention has been on Tulsi. She's been very outspoken, of course, against Section 702 all her time in Congress, really against spying on Americans. And by the way, she was targeted by the NSA. It's an unbelievable sort of turn of events here that she would be heading up the DNI. When you heard this sort of flip-flop, what was your immediate response to that?
My immediate response was one of disappointment, but I happened to be with a couple of friends of mine who are involved in the Trump transition team when I heard this news. And they said, wait a minute, let's think about this for a second. Tulsi's one of only two, possibly three Trump appointees who may be in some trouble in the Senate, the others being Bobby Kennedy and perhaps Pete Hegseth. She may have done this. She may have carried out this flip-flop on 702 just to placate Republican senators who otherwise would be very happy to vote in favor of her confirmation. And then that would allow her to flip back. And now that would be a little bit, it would be a little bit hypocritical, but this is Washington and people do what they need to do in order to save their careers and their nominations. I hope that that's the case because Tulsi has been one of the very few voices in government in either party to support the liberty and constitutional freedoms of Americans that have been guaranteed to us in the Constitution. Remember, not only was it illegal to spy on Americans until Barack Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, thus allowing NSA to spy on Americans, but it's actually a part of NSA's charter that it is forbidden from spying on Americans. We just pretend that that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm hoping that this was just kind of a cynical move to placate some Republican senators until after the vote, and then we'll see what happens when 702 actually comes back up for reauthorization.
I'm not confident in it at all, and you're just allowing this to proliferate. We've talked at length here on the show about how innocent Americans are caught up in this web, this overly broad system. Can you talk a little bit about how bad this really is? I mean, Americans, if they're sitting there and their eyes are glazing over and they're going about their day, I mean, this violates the United States Constitution, does it not?
It absolutely does violate the Constitution. And remember, Americans who are being spied on have no idea that they're being spied on. When the government goes to the FISA court to get a warrant to spy on an American citizen, that citizen has no idea that this warrant has been issued. That citizen is not permitted to defend himself before the FISA court. The government is under no obligation to tell this American that he's even being looked at for having committed a crime, let alone a national security crime. So there's literally no defense that is permitted to be mounted. And on top of all that, the FISA court has denied approval to less than 1% or on less than 1% of the cases that have been presented to it. So not only do you have no idea that the government is intercepting your phones, your phone calls, intercepting your emails and your text messages, even if you did, you wouldn't be allowed to defend yourself.
it doesn't. I mean, it sounds like something out of North Korea, right?
Yeah, it's un-American.
So, are you confident in any capacity? I mean, you sound a little hopeful that maybe they're just doing some maneuvering here, that when push comes to shove and this comes back up again, that Tulsi Gabbard will put her foot down.
Well, friends accuse me of being irrationally hopeful, and I hope that they're wrong in this case. I will say that out of just about anybody who could have been chosen for this job, Tulsi Gabbard is pretty much the only person who has ever expressed any serious reservations about Section 702. And so, I wrote a piece when she was first named as the new DNI, saying that this was an inspired choice. This was somebody who many of us, for whom civil liberties are important, could rally around. I would hate to see her beaten down, whether it was from the right or the left, on something that is so critical to civil liberties and civil rights. I hope she's able to stand up. And I hope that she can rally Republicans in the Senate, because she doesn't need to win a single Democratic vote to be confirmed. She only needs to keep the Republicans together. She could lose 2 or 3 Republican votes, 3 if we then go to Vice President Vance for a tiebreaker. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, and I'm hoping that whatever it is she's promising these senators, whether it's to change her position on 702 or to give 702 a harder look, whatever it is she's telling them, I hope that that's enough.
We mentioned John Ratcliffe. Of course, Trump named John Ratcliffe as the new CIA director. He also headed up the DNI for a short stint. Where does he come down on 702?
That's a great question. In the very beginning, when 702 was first written back in, October of 2001, he was, as a private citizen, he says he was opposed to 702. When he was finally elected to Congress, he voted in favor of 702 a couple of times, although he did express some reservations. Now, every 2 years since 702 was implemented, it gets slightly fewer votes in Congress. I hope that trend continues. If somebody like John Ratcliffe, who's highly respected on both sides of the aisle, even if Democrats don't necessarily agree with his policies, they like and they respect the man, and they believe that he's qualified to do the job as CIA director. I hope that he can be one of those leaders who can go back to Capitol Hill and say 702 is a problem. 702 is probably unconstitutional. We need to take another look at it.
We talk often here on this show how corrupt and dangerous and scary the CIA is. Add in the FBI, you know all too well. Blowing the whistle on the CIA and their crimes. The Obama administration went after you. Where do you think the CIA sits in all of this now? Is the CIA able to be fixed, or is it too far gone?
Honestly, I think it's too far gone. And the problems are multifold. First of all, Donald Trump is going to be president for 4 years. But the moment he puts his right hand up in the air on Inauguration Day, he's a lame duck. And if you look at the leadership of the CIA, the civil service leadership of the CIA, those people have been there for 25 years, 30, 35 years in some cases. And they know that they can outweight this president, just like they can outweight every president. And so if there's an order that comes down from the Oval Office that they don't like, they can ignore it, or they can slow roll it and delay it until Donald Trump just simply isn't the president anymore. That's what I fear, that they're just going to marginalize Donald Trump like they've marginalized other presidents that they didn't like. That's the real danger. But if you're going to have real change in this, first of all, you have to have oversight committees in the Senate and the House that have the guts to actually implement that change and order that change. And I think the place has to be torn apart. That's what I'm hopeful will happen in the FBI with Kash Patel as the director. The place has to be torn down to the bare studs and rebuilt. I say the same thing about the CIA.
John, great to see you. Thank you for your bravery in all of this. I know you were right at the tail end of the last Trump administration, and there was big push, obviously, to try to get you a pardon.
Yeah.
alongside Julian Assange. I remember my friend Tucker
Yes.
that night doing really an impassioned message. It was like a direct message from Tucker to Donald Trump, like, you need to pardon these
God bless
people.
Tucker Carlson. Yeah, God
Yes.
bless Tucker Carlson. He's one of the few that had the guts to go on the record supporting a pardon. And I like to think that I've got some pretty high placed friends in the Trump administration, and I'm excited about what the next 4 years have to offer. And here on Unified Television, this is a network that has long supported whistleblowers and has given whistleblowers a venue to speak truth to power. So there are a lot of things I'm very grateful for right now.
Well, it's amazing. I think it's a new era that we can hear from people like you who are, holding truth to power and being able to spread these messages about these corrupt government politicians and these organizations inside the government. We can hopefully clean this deep state out once and for all. John, great to see you. Thank you for your bravery. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. The pleasure's all mine. Good to see you.